introduce the rest of the members of the subcommittee. I will start with Advocate Nomalanga Sithole, who's the CEO and a member of this committee. Advocate Sithole.
Good morning, Chairperson, and good morning to members of management and support staff, and all the stakeholders that have joined us for this particular meeting today. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Advocate Sithole. Next is also the member of the Pipe Gas Subcommittee, who is also the chair of our Audit and Risk Committee, Ms. Precious Sibiya. Ms. Sibiya.
Good morning, everyone on the call, NERSA team, and also the public. My name is Precious Sibiya. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Sibiya. Next is a regulator member primarily responsible for electricity regulation at NERSA, Mr. Nhlanhla Gumede. Is a member of this committee. Mr. Gumede.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning to members and members of management, and also the stakeholders that may have joined us on this platform. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gumede. And last is Mr. Muzi Mkhize, the regulator member primarily responsible for petroleum pipelines at NERSA. Mr. Mkhize is also a member of this pipe gas subcommittee.
Good morning, Chairperson, members, management, and all those that are following us through the various live streaming channels. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mkhize, and thank you all of the members. Members of the public who are following us, unfortunately at this stage we still don't have the visuals, so you would have to recognize our audios, but we would also ensure that when there's a member who is speaking, we indicate which member is speaking, and when we make the decisions, we'll read out the decisions so that you're aware of what decisions have been made. And welcome, and thank you for your time. We are going to go to the next item on the agenda, which is the adoption of the agenda. The agenda that was published had 10 items that were to be considered, and we have had a discussion prior to opening the meeting to align our agenda with our governance rules, and therefore item number 10 on our agenda, which was the update of the recent High Court review application decision, will not be discussed in the open meeting. The rest of the items will be discussed in the open meeting. May I then request members of the regulator to indicate again if they are in support of approving the agenda as I have outlined. Please raise your hands to show your support. I've got Mr. Mkhize, Ms. Sibiya, Mr. Gumede, Advocate Sithole, and I've got Advocate Sithole. So we are approving the agenda as I have explained. We are now going to the next item. Our item is a declaration of interest, item number 4. May I check if there are members who would want to make a verbal declaration of interest on the matters that we are going to discuss today? If not, may I request that the members sign the declaration of interest forms in our convene software and then share them with Eliezer. I'm going to move straight then on to item number 5. Item number 5, which is the preliminary assessment of the VGN application for maximum prices. Mr. Nxumalo, may you take us through? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. On this item, really, what we are presenting is a preliminary assessment of VGN, and by VGN we mean the full name is Virtual Gas Networks. It's one of the licensees that NERSA has licensed, within the gas industry. The application from VGN was received on the 14th of June, 2024, and basically relates to a maximum price for the period May 2024 to April 2025. VGN has applied for a maximum price, which is shown under Table 1, together with its constituent elements, those being the trading cost, the profit component, as well as the cost of gas. We've assessed the application using the cost-plus approach, which is really in line with the methodology. And basically, this is the method that has been used by the applicant in the application. Chairperson, then on Table 3, we've provided a comparison of NERSA and VGN's calculation of the maximum price. And this reflects really a marginal variance of 1.29% between the two. And this is really due to the calculation of trading costs as well as the profit component. This 1.2% is well within the threshold of 10% that is used for all maximum price applications. Chairperson, we've also compared the new maximum price to the one approved by NERSA in the previous year, and we found that the new maximum price is actually 3% higher than the one previously approved. And this is due to changes in the trading costs. And this is a preliminary assessment, Chairperson, and for publication of the discussion document for public comments. And the recommendations are on paragraph 14 on page 7. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Nxumalo. Members of the Pipe Gas Subcommittee, there's a submission in front of us with recommendations on 14. Are there any questions, points that you would like to clarify, or areas that you would want to be enhanced on the submission? Please raise your hand, members, if you need to clarify something. I've got Ms. Sibia and Advocate Sithole. I'll start with Ms. Sibia.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to the presenter. Chair, just one issue of clarity. I'm fairly new with this committee, how the issues are dealt with. 7.5, the issue of the team can also address it with me outside of this meeting if it's not for this meeting. What I'm asking about is on 7.5, the issue of the maximum price, saying that the methodology stipulates that it excludes distribution tariffs, storage tariff, etc., because I will assume that will be part of the total cost. But then it says that it may be included. Is there a reason why it is not? It is excluded as part of the maximum price, rather be an option to say it may be excluded to arrive at the total maximum charges, because I will think that is a straightforward cost when it comes to the full product. All of those, even the storage cost, etc. And then the second issue is the tax issue. When it comes to tax, let me go to it. Now I've forgotten where it was. My understanding, tax is not a direct cost. What is the reason of us including tax cost in the costing, or in allowing it as a deduction? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sibia. Ms. Advocate Sithole, may you please pose your questions?
Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, mine is a point of enhancement. Under 2.12 on our paragraph under purpose and recommendations, I think we need to indicate what is required in terms of the publication of the consultation document. It's approving, it can be noting. I think Mr. Nxumalo can just indicate whether I'm correct or not. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Advocate Sithole. Mr. Nxumalo did start with that clarification, Advocate Sithole, when we were going to conclude on the agenda. But nonetheless, there is no harm in Mr. Nxumalo repeating what you learned. Mr. Nxumalo, may you please clarify the 2 points on 7.5 of the actual document and the tax issue for Ms. Sibia.
Thank you, Chairperson. The distribution costs for Ms. Sibia's question are really, are included after the maximum price has been calculated. In terms of the current methodology, it actually requires us to include distribution and transmission costs after the maximum price has been calculated. And that is really to align and comply with the methodology. And Chairperson, usually what would happen is that once the maximum price has been calculated, And then those distribution costs as well as transmission costs for those licensees who actually have them can then have them included onto the maximum price or onto the price that they ultimately charge to their customers. And on the second question by Ms. Sibia, the reason for allowing tax as a cost, and again, this is also just in terms of the current methodology, that basically requires that tax, being costs that have been incurred by the licensees, can then be taken into account and basically accounted for, in the assessment of the application. But Chairperson, perhaps with Ms. Sibia's permission and the committee's permission, we can maybe perhaps at some point, arrange a session separately with Ms. Sibia, just to take her through, our regulatory tools, including the methodologies and the legislation and everything else, as a new member of the subcommittee, so that we can maybe just try and clarify some of their processes and tools that we are using. And Chairperson, with regard to Advocate Sitole's question, and I think you're quite correct, as we made that correction earlier on, that item in the discussion that we've had with RSU, it's actually for the PGS to recommend to the ER and not to approve. So it's the item is actually for the PGS to recommend to the ER. Chairperson, let me end it there. I think I've tried to cover all the questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Ngumalo. Members, any other questions? Apologies, colleagues. I just had a disturbance in the office. Mr. Mkhize, I see your hand is up. Please go ahead, Mr. Mkhize.
Thanks, Chairperson. I'm just looking at some of the question here, like question 4, which says the stakeholders are requested to comment on NERSA's treatment of cost of gas, and in particular the exclusion of tariffs and other charges on the cost of gas energy. I am a bit, unsure if ever we had any response to this question, if it's standard question. I would presume this kind of a question would suffice when one is looking at a methodology. But once a methodology is in place, one would not expect to get much of that. So I think maybe if such can be rephrased, maybe to ask a question as to are there any other charges that they of the view that they need to be included in the cost of gas and provide justification thereof. I will leave it at that.
Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Mr. Mkhize, I must confess that also when I looked at that question, I thought that we need to relook at the kind of questions that we're asking stakeholders to comment on, because when it's like that, it doesn't shed a good light on that. But I think going forward, we need to really refine our questions. But thank you for that input. And at this point, I think that's an enhancement that's being proposed, colleagues, if we could implement that enhancement. May I then come back to our recommendations? I also just really wanted, Ms. Beer, I want to confirm that you've been responded to adequately, and you will take the offer of the colleagues from the pipe gas division giving you a rundown on the methodologies and the other applicable rules that we are going to use in the subcommittee. Ms. Veer?
Yes, Chair, thanks. I did show the thumbs up. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Veer. Okay, and therefore, Mr. Ngumalo, can you assist and you take us back to the recommendations?
Yeah, thank you, Chairperson. The recommendations are on paragraph 14, and this is on page 7. And this is for the PGS to note the preliminary assessment and then to recommend to the ER for approval.
Thank you. Colleagues, may you please indicate by raising your hand if you're in support of the recommendations on 14.1, the 1 to note the assessment, and the number 2 to recommend the approval by the energy regulator. I've got Mr. Mkhize, Advocate Sithole, Mr. Gumede, Mr. Beer. Yes, I've got it. So we have the decision. Thank you. May we then move on to item number 6, the preliminary assessment of SLG as well.
Thank you, Chairperson. This is another preliminary assessment, this time round from a company called SLG. They are operating in KZN, particularly in the Durban area. The application was received in April 2024, I beg your pardon, and is for a maximum price for the period July 2024 to June 2025. Chair, this is the second application made by SLG since the introduction of the new methodology in 2023. SLG has applied for the maximum price shown in Table 3 that will be applicable to traders and as well as end users, customers, respectively. The calculation in Table 3 also shows a comparison of NERSA and SLG's calculation of the maximum price, and really there's a fairly marginal difference of 0.46%, and this arises from trading costs. And Chairperson, again, just to emphasize, this is well within the 10% that we normally use as a threshold for maximum price applications. Chair, it will be noted that SLG gets its gas from 2 suppliers, and in accordance with the methodology, we've used the weighted average of the price charged by the 2 suppliers in the calculation of the acquisition costs. This is really to align and comply with the methodology. And SLG was not happy about this approach, and I think they preferred to actually use the higher of the 2 prices that are charged by their 2 suppliers for the calculation of acquisition costs. But that would not be in line with the methodology, and hence the team has actually, used the approach that is determined and required in terms of the methodology. And SLG has applied for a quarterly adjustment of the price in relation to the supplier from Social Gas and a monthly adjustment in relation to the supplier from the other supplier, which is Kwande Gas. And the reasons for the adjustment are set out in paragraph 413, and this is on page 5. Chairperson, the recommendations on this one on paragraph 14 on page 9. And again, this is for noting of the assessment as well as the publication of the discussion document. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Ngumalo. Members, we have a submission in front of us. Any questions, comments, or points to be enhanced? I don't see any hands. Mr. Ngumalo, I do want to add you, colleagues, and I want to take you straight to your table 3 in the absence of questions from the other members. If we go to your table 3 there, you can see on your table 3 whether you take the part where you're calculating for customers or the part where you're calculating for this, that the numbers there are not the same, but you still show a different number. I don't understand how that gets done. So can you improve on that? I'm not opposed to what we are concluding, but the route to there must also show a number of things. And on 14.13 C, we also talk about what this is going to do to SLG, and I don't see an explanation of how we are then going to ensure that SLG is not disadvantaged by the fact that the clawback can only be in the following year. So I see Mr. Gumede's hand is up, but after Mr. Gumede, can you just address those 2 points that I've raised? Mr. Gumede, your hand.
Thank you, Chairperson. Apologies for the delayed raising of the hand. Firstly, on table 1, Chair, for me, the question that I had was, I know that in 4.5, it says the methodology says it must be a weighted average. However, if I'm one of the players, Gwande, for instance, and I'm selling my gas, the cost that I see is exactly that cost, is not a weighted average. Now, isn't it? So again, it's about a question of disadvantaging one trader. Is that correct? Should we not? Should this not be reflecting? Is this not supposed to be a based on a marginal price? That is basically the molecule that basically balances supply, being the one that actually sets the market price. I'm just asking, and then we can deal with other issues in terms of windfall differently. That's number one. But my biggest question is in table 2. Table 2, or it's on page, so it's 55 of anyway, it's also on table 2, taxation. That number of 98 million kind of baffles me in a way. Yes, I know that it's the way it's explained. It's as a tax benefit, I can understand, but if it's a tax benefit, is that not supposed to be an asset rather than an OPEX number? I'm just concerned that taxation number, if that's what you then deduct in terms of price setting, is that correct? If there's deferred tax, I can understand tax as being a cost to the supplier, but deferred tax for me means something totally different. Maybe can I maybe be corrected there in a way? I'm not understanding it. Thanks. I think those are my 2 questions, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Gumede. Mr. Ngumalo, with your team.
Yeah, thank you, Chairperson. I'll let the team, come in and maybe assist on, particularly on the taxation issue raised by Mr. Gumede and the issue of the weighted average. But let me start with your input, Chairperson, under table 3. I think we do acknowledge and thank you for bringing to our attention the error that needs to be corrected under the table, and we will correct that. And I think we will try to be vigilant, around those type of issues going forward, just to ensure that there's accuracy in these tables, with regard to these and similar matters. Chairperson, I think will then affect the other arrangements that you've proposed. And with that, quickly, let the team come in to clarify the issue on the tax, as well as the issue on the weighted average.
Thank you, Mr. Ngumalo. The team, if you can just identify yourself, the one who's going to come. Mr. Mkhize, I note your hand. I will just take these questions and then I'll come back to you.
Thank you. Okay.
So who is going to start first?
Well, it sounds like Ms. Sikenu is actually the author in this submission, or Ms. Makota. Colleagues, can we maybe try and be quick and assist?
Chairperson, I will ask Ms. Geno to start and then I will come after.
Thank you, Chairperson. In terms of the maximum price calculation, that is the question that was asked by Mr. Kumete. The methodology, if the supplier, if the licensee has got two suppliers, then the weighted average gets used. What we approve is not the actual price. We approve the maximum price. So then, therefore, what is charged by the customer, the licensees, is based on the maximum price. Then the actual price is monitored after. And in fact, SLG, there is an adjustment that has been approved on a monthly basis and on a quarterly basis. For the other supplier, SLG is allowed to adjust because the Kwande is charging in dollars. So on a monthly basis or whenever, they are allowed to adjust the actual basis in terms of the rand-dollar exchange. And then should there be any difference, then they are allowed to recover that at the end of the year through the clawback mechanism. That is the first one, Chair. Thank you. Then in terms of the tax, all the elements of the trading margin are based on the budgeted values. And then there is no deferred tax. NERSA does not allow, in terms of our methodology, we are not allowing any deferred tax. What we do, we allow the actual tax paid to SARS. Then the difference between what is budgeted for and the actual also get corrected through the clawback mechanism. Thank you.
Thank you. In addition to what Ms. Genu is saying, regarding the issue of the weighted average cost, Chairperson, we have noted the motivation from SLG, wherein they are saying that if they use the weighted average cost on a monthly basis, there seems to be an amount that will necessitate clawback. As a result, they have motivated that NERSA should actually consider using the Kwande acquisition cost of gas as the highest cost, just to make sure that all the expenses and all the cost of acquisition are passed through. We have acknowledged that, and if you look at the submission itself, you will note that we have motivated and we have provided the analysis of what SLG is saying, and we are putting it there to the stakeholders and putting the differences in terms of what the maximum price will be if we calculate it on the basis of weighted average cost, and also what is the maximum price if we calculate it based on the highest cost of acquisition as per SLG. Our view is that it is better to use the weighted average cost of acquisition, because if you look at the annual volumes and the annual cost of acquisition, it tends to adjust at the end of the year. And if we use the highest cost of acquisition, the impact is that the customers ends up paying more than what the licensee incurred. Now, regarding the issue of taxation on table 2, I think what we are saying is that we treat the tax as an expense, because we believe that the tax is an estimated tax payable to the tax authority with respect to the taxable allowable revenue. And what NERSA prescribed is the use of a flow-through tax. And in the flow-through tax, only the current income taxable payable affected, and the deferred tax, we don't include it. And it is for those reasons that we regard tax as an expense, and that is provided for also in our tariff guidelines and the methodology. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Ms. Makota and Ms. Sikenu. But can I just go back to Mr. Gumede, because I understood Mr. Gumede's question to be two-pronged, but we may not be able to address all of that in this meeting. But Mr. Gumede, can I first check with you?
Chairperson, on the first one, if the issue of a marginal cost is being investigated, I'm happy with that. On the second one, on taxation, I must admit the reason why I looked at this and I thought that perhaps in the main body, that number, again, it's in yellow, so I can't talk about it, is that number just makes very little sense to me. I mean, compared with for instance, with depreciation, or compared with OPEX, it just seems to be a phenomenally high number. So I must admit, since that I don't have the actual Excel tables, it's very difficult to actually understand it. But that number doesn't look right to me.
Thank you, Mr. Gumede. Mr. Magoda, you're going to come back and respond to that number, and also make it such that when there's taxation, you must also be able to relate it to this income that's being taxed, or the revenue that's being taxed, and which is not what we have here. But before you respond, may I get Mr. Mkhize?
Thanks, Chairperson. From my side, it's just a small issue. My understanding is that if something is highlighted in yellow, it has been requested to be kept as confidential, but deemed not to be. But if it is struck through, then it is confidential. If they can just have that clarity, because even some of the things that are put in like the figures, total figures, some of them are not necessarily confidential. So if you can stick to that, so that we don't even have to make mistakes here of mentioning numbers, just stick to the convention that we have. And also, just in line with what you have said, Chairperson, just paying a bit more attention to the tables that we will put in terms of numbers and the formulas that we put there, like table 6. I think and there should be 2 brackets at the beginning there to capture everything. Yeah, I will leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mkhize, for those enhancements. Ms. Makota, you wanted to respond to, or to enhance your response around the taxation issue that Mr. Gumede had raised?
Yes, Chairperson, I wanted to say that we note the discomfort with regard to the taxation amount as per Mr. Gumede's input. What we are proposing is that we'll verify our calculation, and then we'll also, after that, we'll circulate the calculations to the members, just so to give them confirmation in terms of the calculations that are in the document.
Thank you, Ms. Makota. There are others that are just wrong. There are others where you just have to confirm that. And I think the 2 things we are confirming is the taxation amount, because it is disproportionate when you look at what is in that table. And as Mr. Gumede says, if you go and look down there, you need to get just a little bit more information to be able to align that taxation figure that's in that table. So please reconfirm. We know that the calculations of NERSA and those of SLG, the difference is within the range that we consider acceptable. But in the presentation and the optics that is required for what we approve as a regulator, please ensure that there's alignment and there's correctness. Members, with that, may I take you to the recommendations? Mr. Numalo, I think they are on page, if you can assist, they're on page, on 14.
It's on page.
Yeah?
Yeah, on paragraph 14, Chairperson, on page 9.
Okay. So those are the recommendations. And in this one, Mr. Ngumalo, it's really we are noting the assessment, and we are also approving the publication of the consultation paper.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Members, please raise your hands to indicate your support of noting and approving this with the corrections and enhancements that we have requested. I've got Mr. Mkhize, Mr. Gumede, Ms. Bia, and Advocate Sithole. Thank you. It's approved. We are now going to go to item number 7, the preliminary assessment of SLCNG. Mr. Ngumalo, you have the floor. Mr. Mkhize, is that an old hand?
Apologies, Chair, it's a lingering hand. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ngumalo, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chairperson. This is another preliminary assessment. This one is from SLCNG, which is a sister company to SLG. We received this one on the 30th of April 2024, and is for a maximum price for the period July 2024 to June 2025. And we provided a summary under Table 1 of the maximum price application, and it basically just by detailing the constituent element of the maximum price, which is the trading cost, the profit margin, as well as the cost of gas. SLG gets its gas from one supplier, unlike its sister company, SLG. This one, SLCNG, actually gets its gas from one supplier. So there's no issue regarding the that weighted average that we've just discussed in the previous application. They've basically asked for a quarterly adjustment of the price, and this is in line with its contract with the supplier. And Chairperson, on Table 3, we provided a comparison of NERSA and SLG's calculation of the maximum price. And this reflects a variance of only 1%, and again, well within the 10% threshold that we normally use for maximum prices. Chairperson, the recommendations are on page 6, and this is really for noting of the preliminary assessment and the publication of the consultation document. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Ngumalo. Members, the submission is in front of us, and I think Mr. Ngumalo, excuse me, colleagues. Mr. Ngumalo, as you do the other assessment of that other application that we have just dealt with, if you could, as in the questions that were asked by Mr. Gumede, just make comparisons, because if you look now at the taxation number, it's a big difference. And I think those explanations, as much as Ms. Makota said it's there in the submission, I think you need to bring them up if we miss them somehow. Members, it's for you to discuss. Please raise your hand, members, if you have a point to clarify or point to enhance. I see no hands, and therefore I'm going to take you to the recommendations that are on. I'm just scrolling down to get to the recommendations.
They're on page 6, Chairperson.
Page 6, 14.11.
Yes.
Yeah. It is to note this assessment, and 14.12 is to approve the publication of the consultation document. Please raise your hand, members, to indicate your support. I've got Mr. Mkhize, Advocate Sithole, Ms. Bia, and Mr. Gumede. Thank you. We have approved. Colleagues, we are going to move on to the next item, item number 8. This is the aggregate results for gas pipelines and compressed natural gas. It's a report. Mr. Ngumalo.
Thank you, Chairperson. This item basically relates to the aggregate results that we are required to publish on an annual basis. This basically details the average prices that are charged by licensees or suppliers in the 4 provinces, in particular Gauteng, KZN, as well as the Mpumalanga province. Chairperson, in terms of the pipe gas regulations, NERSA is required to basically promote fair pricing through price transparency. And this is really in order to enable consumers to make informed market decisions. And the regulations also require NERSA to then publish these aggregate results on a provincial basis. Chairperson, in order to comply with the regulations, the licensee were requested or asked to provide information on prices charged in the calendar year 2023 to NERSA for the purpose of the calculation of the aggregate results. And under table number, in paragraph 4.9 on page 5, we've basically detailed the method used to calculate the results, just for the benefit of the members. And the aggregate results are separated in terms of CNG and pipeline customers. Chairperson, the aggregate results for Gauteng are set out in pages, in tables 4 and 5 for pipeline and CNG customers respectively. And what we've noted with regard to customers in Gauteng is that there's been an increase of about 6% for pipeline customers and 1% for CNG customers compared to those prices that we charged in the previous year of 2022. And the aggregate results for KZN are detailed under table 6 and 9 for pipeline and CNG customers respectively. And what we've noted in this area is that the KZN customers basically had an average increase of 1.74 and 4% for pipeline and CNG customers respectively. And Free State is detailed under table number 10 and 11 for pipeline and CNG customers. And what you've seen in these tables is that the pipeline customers did not incur any increase. And whilst the CNG customers, basically there was an increase of about 11% for those customers. And Mpumalanga is in table 12, and we only have pipeline customers, in Mpumalanga, and no CNG customers. Chairperson, the submission then also details the volumes that have been sold in all the 4 provinces. I think what is notable in this area is that most volumes were sold in Gauteng and followed by KZN, and then Mpumalanga, and the lowest volumes were sold in the Free State. And I think that's just in line with the state of industry in this, 4 provinces, with Gauteng having most of the industrial activities, most of those, that accounts for the reason why the gas, most of the gas is actually has been sold in Gauteng. Chairperson, the recommendations are on page 20 under paragraph number 14. It's really for noting of the aggregate results. And on this one, as we made that correction earlier on, the delegation metrics, actually, just to clarify that, the delegation metrics currently does not contain any provision, make any provision with regard to how aggregate results are supposed to be dealt with. So in terms of the terms of reference that were determined by NERSA, then these aggregate results will be recommended to the ER for approval. Chairperson, just to quickly make that correction. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Nxumalo. Members of the Pipe Gas Subcommittee, any questions, comments, areas that we would want to be enhanced on this report? None? In that case, may I take you to 14.1, as Mr. Nxumalo has recommended, that this is really to be recommended to the energy regulator to approve 14.1, and it lists all of the tables, table 16, 17, and then we approve on 14.2 the publication of the aggregated results. Please raise your hands, colleagues, to indicate support. I've got Mr. Mkhize, Ms. Advocate Sithole, Mr. Gumede, and Ms. Sibiya. Thank you. It's approved, and it will then go to the regulator. Colleagues, we are now going to go to item number 9, the consultation document on the determination of inadequate competition. Mr. Ngomalo, please take us through.
Thank you, Chairperson. On this item, really, we are presenting a consultation document and explaining the reason why we've basically come up with this consultation document. Chairperson, in brief, in terms of Section 211P of the Gas Act, NERSA is required to approve maximum prices where there is inadequate competition in the gas market. And therefore, the approval of maximum prices is sort of contingent on NERSA determining that there is, that the level of competition within the market remains inadequate or is still inadequate. And to this extent, we've already conducted 4 assessments in the past, and all of them have basically came up with the conclusion that the state of competition within the gas market is still inadequate. And for the purpose of this consultation, NERSA basically will conduct another assessment, which is the 5th assessment, because in terms of the Act, we are required to basically periodically conduct these assessments in order to basically, confirm the state of competition within the gas market, and therefore align with Section 211P that says that we can only approve maximum prices on condition or to the extent that, we found the state of competition within the market to be inadequate. And the consultation document, Chairperson, contains preliminary assessment of the state of competition in the industry, which still appears to be inadequate. But, the real conclusion about whether the competition remains inadequate will basically be confirmed by, the final report that after publication of the preliminary assessment in the consultation document. Chairperson, since the last assessment in 2022, some developments have occurred, and we've noted that these developments included the government's plans to stimulate the market as well as the expansion of license operations. And there's been a number of new entrants into the market, but we don't believe that these developments actually have had any material impact on the state of competition within the gas market. And the market is still characterized by the presence of one dominant supplier, which owns most of the infrastructure and supplies most of the gas. And as such, this 5th assessment is meant to delve deeper into determining the inadequacy of competition within the gas market. Chairperson, the recommendations are on page 6, and that's really for noting of the consultation and approval for its publication for public comments. I'm told by the colleagues that Mr. Mkhize has provided some inputs on the document, and we just wanted to quickly acknowledge those and indicate that those inputs will be incorporated onto the document, Chairperson. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Ngumalo, and thank you, Mr. Mkhize, for your inputs. Colleagues, may we indicate if there are other points or inputs that would want to add, or changes or corrections and questions that we may have on this document before it's published. Please raise your hand, colleagues, if you require. I see no hands, and I say, therefore, take it that the members are in support of the recommendations on paragraph 14, that we noting the consultation document and also publishing the consultation document. Please raise your hand, colleagues, to indicate that you are in support of these recommendations. But Mr. Mkhize, Ms. Sibia, Advocate Sitole, Mr. Gumede, and Mr. Gumede, thank you. Item number, we are done with this item. We are then going to move on to item number 11. Remember that we have moved item 10 to our governance part. So item number 11 is the reports on the new gas sources in the South Africa and neighboring countries. Mr. Ngumal.
Thank you, Chairperson. This report really details, important and key developments that have occurred within the market in the period April to June 2024. Chairperson, just to state again for the benefit of the rest of the members, We do conduct this type of research and study, annually, about twice annually, just to scan the market and assess and test the type of developments that are occurring within the market. And the reason for that is that as the board is responsible for regulation of the gas industry, it is quite important for NERSA to actually monitor developments within the industry and to gather information on potential gas sources that may be emerging in local, regional, as well as international segments of the market. And amongst the important developments, Chairperson, that occurred in this period was the passing of the Upstream Petroleum Development Bill, which has been sent to the President for signature. The bill is really meant to replace the Chapter 6 of the MPRDA. And importantly, this bill introduces a separation of the regulatory framework governing mining as well as the petroleum exploration activities upstream, and which are currently dealt with under the MPRDA. Another notable development was the publication of the Gas Master Plan. I think members might recall that we did present this and circulate it for comments and basically presented it at PGS as well as ER, just for noting and together with the inputs that we provided onto that. But the plan really outlines the role of natural gas in the gas energy mix and sets out a policy direction for the industry. And this report, Chairperson, also then touches on exploration activities that are taking place at various areas within the country and in neighboring areas, including the Orange Basin and the Northern Cape areas. Amongst these developments is basically the Brupalda and Leipert project, which is reported to have reached approval stage, and we are informed that the final investment decision is expected later this year, which is a positive development. And I think in another positive development, it is reported that PetroSA is set to receive its first gas flows from a deal with Mozambican energy company ENH. This is really as part of the efforts to alleviate the looming gas shortage in South Africa currently. And Chairperson, in terms of regional developments, we've seen that Total Energies is set to restart work on the 20 billion LNG project in Mozambique. And the gas to power project also in the Inhambane province, which is also in Mozambique, is expected to commence operations in 2025. And it is reported that this will produce about 450 megawatts of power. And it will be located in the Banda Ndimane gas fields. So that power will be produced basically using the gas from those fields. And the report also then details developments in Namibia and Tanzania. And notably, there are some positive developments that are occurring in Namibia with regard to the findings of gas resources as well as oil and petroleum resources. And we believe that in terms of the potential benefits to South Africa from those activities is that this recent discoveries in Namibia and Mozambique actually holds potential for South Africa and the SADC region. And our close proximity to Namibia and Mozambique actually presents an opportunity for us to benefit, from the natural gas sectors that seems to be bustling in those two countries. Chairperson, I think that is just the summary of these developments that are occurring within South Africa and in the regional market. Chairperson, the recommendations on this one, then are on page 22, and this is really for noting of the report. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Ngumalo. Colleagues, here's a report in front of us, and I think we've seen the one part of the other part of the report in the first half of in the last half of last year. Any questions, comments, or points to be enhanced, Mrs. Sbia? I'd seen your hand. I'm not sure if it is. It was a lingering hand. I don't see Ms. Sbia. In this case, I'll take Mr. Kumete. Mr. Kumete, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chairperson. Just a couple of questions for clarity. On page 14, sorry, is it page 14? Anyways, paragraph 6.6, paragraph 6.61.3, and paragraph 6.61.5, which makes reference to panda and demonic gases, and especially 6.61.3, in respect of a power plant that's built on the back of that. I mean, it's just clarity. I'd understood that gas life has come to is coming to an end, or is it just the part that is how do I put it? The part that is supposed to be supplied to Sasol. That's is the contract that's coming to an end, or is this the gas? Or I'd assume that gas deposit is being depleted, or or is my understanding incorrect? And this applies also to 6.61.5 in terms of that yeah. So for me, I'm seeing this reference to Panda and Timani gas field, but I understood that the gas fields are being depleted. If maybe I could be assisted with that. And another one is just something that was published. I was actually trying to find it. I thought it was yesterday, but it might be it might be published in the past few days on newspapers. I think it was on Business Day. Anyway, the view that Total Energy is exiting Brupada in favor of and focusing on the Orange River Basin, because it's indicated that it's indicating that field in terms of it, that field in 11B, the gas might be a little bit more difficult to actually produce. If we can just confirm that, and maybe if I may have read it incorrectly as well, if you can correct me as well, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Gumede. Mr. Mkhize?
Thanks, Chairperson, and thanks to the team for this kind of a report. Find it very useful, and I think it will also assist to share this report with the policymakers. Even have some engagements with the policymaker in terms of seeing how best to then action whatever information that comes from here, and even means positioning ourselves accordingly in terms of international relations, etc. I think that is important, and also to start right here to look at the key objects of the Gas Act, and see if any developments are advancing that, and how maybe we can position ourselves to advance. And I appreciate that this is a report, and we're always going to have some kind of comments in one way or another, but this does not mean that this is not good work that has been done. I think when I look at paragraph 6.5 and 6.8, I hope this kinetic and kinetico is actually one company. And if you can just make sure that you put it as, you just correct that, so that it is clear that it says one entity in terms of the spelling there. Yeah, I think from my side, as I said, I am very much appreciative of this report. But the question is, how do we then turn this into knowledge and intelligence? Oh, sorry. There's just one last thing, Chairperson. On 6.4, there's a sentence that they say these projects signify major achievements in harnessing Africa's potential. However, the development of these projects would take time. You know, I was heartbroken some years ago when we're looking at shale gas, and we went to we're going around in the car, and then people came to be employed, and unfortunately, some of the local leaders had kind of given an impression that people are going to be employed and things are going to take place. I think it will also help if you can just keep track of these developments in recent times, how long it takes to monetize gas finds. Just to get a picture, so that our people, noting that we've got high rate of unemployment in the country, sometimes people I would say that they are misinformed and they've got unrealistic expectations. So we need to be able to inform our people accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Mr. Mkhize, I think, including your last point, I think the part that Mr. Nomala has to assist us with, I mean, there must be some sharing activities or initiatives of this report with the policymakers. So I think if they can assist in that, because some of the things that you have indicated will generally be positioned in that sharing, and NASA will be positioned in the proper place during that sharing and that strategizing with the policymakers. And I think we can sort out this kinetic spelling, but the questions that Mr. Gumede has asked, if you could assist with those, Mr. Ngimal.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think on the first one, regarding the paragraph 6.613, the state of the gas resources at Pandindimani, we had also, contacted Social Gas to just establish the position with regard to those gas sources. What we know and what has been reported to us is that those gas sources will be depleting, but the depletion will be basically an overtime process, starting from 2026 and up until the actual depletion, in terms of the, when it's going to basically take effect, materially, will be 2029. That is the stage at which it is expected that those resources will be depleting. Then Social Gas has explained that they basically, engaged in other activities to try and find alternative gas sources, or to try and extend the life of those gas resources. And it sounds like there is some positive developments, or there is something that is coming out of those measures that they are taking to basically extend the life of those gas resources. And I think we are due to get another a report from Social Gas as to what finally has been established with regard to the successes or otherwise of extending those life resources. But then with regard to this one, the power project at Pandindimani, what Mozambique has indicated is that there is volumes of gas that are allocated to the Mozambican government. And from what we're hearing is that the Mozambican government will not be using those volumes. Instead, they've decided to basically make them available then for the power project, or for the gas to be used in the power project. So that's where the gas will be coming from, Chairperson. But I think we'll share then with the PGS as soon as Social has come back to us with regard to the progress they are making with regard to the extending the life of the Pandindimani fields. We'll share that progress with the PGS just for
this one is too much.
And then under Total Energies, I think Ms. Koza, you don't you might want to mute your mic. I think we're getting feedback from your side. With regard to the report about Total Energies exiting Propelder, yeah, they've actually clarified that, because we had actually seen that media report as well. And we contacted them to try and basically get clarification about what is it that is happening there. And what they indicated is that they had initially planned to basically exit, but following engagements that they've had with government and other stakeholders, they've decided to basically stay. So it sounds like they will be staying for now on those on that Prabhupada project, and we hope that will remain as such and will never change even in the future. But then they've basically indicated that should that change, or should they have a change of mind on that and decide to exit, they will indicate. But so far, their position is that they will be staying. And I think, Chairperson, to proceed then to Mr. Mkhize's questions, I think these are really enhancements. And I think in line with your input as well, we will, as per the directive, share this report with the policymaker. And I think we'll try and basically just maybe arrange a meeting, in addition to the correspondence or the letter that we'll be sending to the policymaker to basically, suggest to them that perhaps we can discuss it with them, because it is quite important, in a meeting, so that we can clarify and expand on these developments and indicate how this then promote the objectives of the Gas Act, and how some of these developments may basically need to be, taken further in terms of interactions with even the neighboring countries, to ensure that we benefit indeed from these gas resources emerging in countries such as Namibia as well as Mozambique. Chairperson, I think under paragraph 6.3, we'll do that enhancement. That's just to indicate that Connectico is one company. And lastly, Chairperson, it was your input, and I think that related to what I've already touched on, which is the sharing of the report with the policymaker, which we will do. Chairperson, I believe that I've tried to cover all the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ngumalo. Mr. Gumede, may I just check if you covered in the responses that Mr. Ngumalo has given?
Chair, I'm sufficiently covered, but I guess we will actually just keep tabs with those developments, and as indicated by the team, they will actually keep the PGS informed. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Gumede. On that note, colleagues, may I take you to the paragraph 14, the recommendations is that we note this report, but I think in noting it, there are also these other additional requests that we've had, like sharing the report, but we note, and in the report, you will put in the inputs of the Pipe Gas Committee. Please raise your hand, colleagues, to indicate your support. But Mr. Gumede, Mr. Beer, Advocate Sithole, and Mr. Mkhize, the report is noted. Thank you. We are going to then move on to item number 12. This is the compliance report on license conditions in the operation of the gas transmission lines. Mr. Ngumalo?
Thank you, Chairperson. This is the first quarter report on compliance with license conditions. And what really we are touching on in this report is the inspections, or the outcome of inspections that were conducted in the first quarter, on operations pertaining to the transmission and distribution of gas. And 10 sites were inspected. These operations are conducted at various sites in different areas within the country. And we conducted 10 inspections on 10 sites in the first quarter, where gas transmission and distribution is taking place. And the sites were inspected, that were inspected are detailed per Chairperson under table number 1, together with findings made during the inspections at each site. And I think in the interest of time, I will just summarize what the findings were. And most of them really related to overdue calibration on some of the facilities, as members will see on table number 1, and as well as maintenance that needs to be improved. And Soso Gas was informed about these findings in writing, and they've indicated that they are addressing them and they will present or submit a report to NERSA with regard to, the outcome of those measures that they take to address these issues to NERSA by the end of July. And again, as soon as we get that report, Chairperson, we will try and share that with the subcommittee just as an update with regard to, what is it that has been done to address these issues of non-compliance. Chairperson, the recommendations are on page 13, and really they are for noting of the report. And as I indicated, that as soon as we get, the report from social gas as to how they've addressed these issues pertaining to these findings, then we'll share that with the subcommittee. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Nxumalo. Colleagues, we have a report in front of us on the compliance with license conditions, mainly by SASOL. Any questions, comments, points that we would want the team to enhance? Ms. Sibiya?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to the presenter. My question is on item which is on page 20. The feedback where the HPCMS was not added, and it states there that the feedback was supposed to be received by the end of June. I just want to confirm with the team if that feedback was received. If not, then what are the implications then? Because we're already in July, what are the implications then if it was not received following the agreement of being submitted by the end of June? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sibiya. I don't see any other hands. Mr. Nxumalo?
Thank you, Chairperson. With regard to that feedback, Ms. Sibiya, we've actually made a follow-up with SASOL because it was not received by the end of June. And they've undertaken to basically make it part of the report that will come by July, just to, deal with that aspect. But we have expressed to them our concern regarding their failure to basically comply with that deadline for June. And we are hoping that by July, they will actually be able to provide that feedback together with the report that they'll be providing on the rest of the other items.
Thank you, Mr. Nxumalo. Ms. Sibiya, are you okay with that? With that response?
Yes, Chair. I think the team needs to make sure that they follow up so that the matter is closed. I'm fine, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Sibiya. Colleagues, our recommendations for this one are paragraph number 14, and we are required to just note the report and note that SASOL has responded. Please indicate by raising your hand if you are approving these recommendations. I've got Ms. Sibiya, Mr. Gumede, Advocate Sithole, Mr. Mkhize, and Mr. Mkhize. Thank you. Colleagues, we are now on item number 13. This is the first quarter report on the construction licenses issued. Mr. Nxumalo, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairperson. In this report, really, we are providing an update on progress made in the construction of licensed facilities, and this is during the first quarter. The report also details the number of construction projects that have been completed from all the licenses that NERSA has issued. And specifically, we've issued 109 facilities have been completed. And 62 of those are distribution facilities and 43 are transmission facilities. And then the rest is pertains to basically facilities for the trading of gas. And Chairperson, only one project was underway in the first quarter, and this pertains to the construction of a distribution facility by SASOL Gas in the Alrod area to enable supply to a new customer. And I think members of the RSC might recall that we recently actually, presented this report, on another dimension where SASOL Gas was basically seeking the amendment of their license conditions to include this, facility that they've constructed. Chairperson, the construction activities for this facility commenced in June 2024 and are due for completion in August 2024. The report also shows the measures taken by the licensee to provide opportunities or give opportunities to previously disadvantaged individuals in the construction of the licensed facilities. And this is really where they subcontract or allow companies that are owned and managed by previously disadvantaged individuals to conduct the construction activities on behalf of social gas. And under table number 1, we've provided the names and the number of companies that were contracted by SOSA by the licensee in the construction of the gas facilities. And I think, it will be noted that 67% of these companies are actually owned and managed by Black or African women, which is basically, commendable, and which reflects that we are going somewhere in terms of just the empowerment aspects in the construction of these facilities. Chairperson, I think that is, in a nutshell, really a summary of the developments that occurred with regard to the construction of licensed facilities in the first quarter. And the recommendations are on page 8, and that's really for noting of the report. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Ngumalo. Members of the Pipe Gas Subcommittee, any questions, comments, points that you would want enhanced? I see no hands being raised, so I'm going to just request you to go to the recommendations, paragraph 14, that we are recommended to note the construction progress for the first quarter, that one new construction project has been undertaken in the first quarter, and the construction project of the SLG gas facility is 10% complete. Please raise your hands, colleagues, to indicate that you are approving or that we can note this. I've got Mr. Gumede, Advocate Stoller, Mr. Bia, and Mr. Mkiza. Thank you. The report is noted. Colleagues, we are going to go on to item number 14, which is the Sasol gas monthly volume, the volume balance report. Mr. Ngumalo.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think on this one, really, it's a report that members would have seen in the past that basically reflects the volumes that have been supplied from Mozambique to South Africa, and including the gas delivered to ENH, and as well as SSA, which is basically a social subsidiary, and Gwande Gas, which are basically importing gas from Mozambique to South Africa. Chairperson, maybe just amongst the notable features of this report is that we've seen an increase in the inventory, and that is under row 14 and 15 on the table 1, which is on page 5. And that increase basically indicates that there's more volumes that were supplied to South Africa from Mozambique in May compared to the volumes that were supplied in April. And it is a good thing because, in every instance where the volumes are actually, showing an increase in terms of supply, it is beneficial for South Africa with regard to just ensuring that we've got sufficient levels of volumes to meet the demand that we have currently, and also to ensure that Sasol does indeed meet its obligations at the end of the year with regard to the supply of the minimum of 120 million gigajoules per annum to South Africa. Chairperson, I think the variance then came in at 0.79, which seems to have reduced as well compared to the variances that we've had in the past. And we are still waiting for Sasol basically to come back to us with regard to some of the issues that we've raised with them for clarification. And as soon as we get that clarification and that report, we'll then bring that to the PGS as well for noting in terms of the, how those issues have been addressed, particularly around the variance that, has been raised by members in the past. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Ngumalo. Members, any questions, comments? If none, may I then request that we just go to the recommendations? Apologies, my convener is on strike. Maybe Mr. Ngumalo, you are closer to the recommendations. Mr. Ngumalo? Mr. Kumete, I see your hand. Is there a question, Mr. Kumete?
Yes, thanks, Chairperson. I just wanted to have perhaps if maybe I'm reading table 1 incorrectly. I thought that table 1 just presents the same data, basically normalized meters, cubic meters, as well as in gigajoules. So, and if that can then be, because I see if that's the case, I'm not too sure how, for instance, line 13 would be positive in one and negative in the other. Maybe it's just something that I'm reading incorrectly, as well as the variance. Because I would have assumed that the variance, whether it's measured in normalized cubes, meter cubed, or it's in gigajoules, the variance would be the same. But maybe it's just the way. Maybe I'm just not understanding the table. If I can be assisted, please.
Thank you, Mr. Kumete. Mr. Ngumalo, Mr. Milato, are you able to assist?
Yeah, Chairperson, I think let the compliance team who have dealt with this matters in the past to just clarify that. The calculation of the variance, gigajoules, as opposed to the other aspect. Mr. Milato, can you quickly come in and clarify?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think Mr. Kumete's question is on 13, line 13, that the gigajoule is negative and the variance needs to be the same. On this one, Chair, remember when we convert from cubic meter to gigajoule, we'll be using a formula that involves the heating value for a conversion. And in that, we are going to get different values, Chair. And for instance, on the variance, let's go to the variance, gas unaccounted for, divide by the volumes at CPF. So the conversion value will change the numbers such that it's not possible for you to get 0.9% on gigajoule and 0.9% on cubic meter, Chair. And the same will be applying to negative values, because sometimes they change on the values. You'll find that one value is bigger than the value that is supposed to be subtracted from. And sometimes you get one that is negative and the other one that is positive, Chair. On that, Chair, I'm not sure if I'm explaining it to the understanding of Mr. Gumete, but I think that is the calculation that we normally receive when we do verifications, Chair.
Mr. Gumete, are you covered? And I think for me, Mr. Gumete, when I was not covered in the meeting with this, I did have a continuation with Mr. Milato and his team, and we got to a common understanding at some point. Are you covered, Mr. Gumete, by the response?
Chairperson, I would actually have to have something outside. I can't see for the life of me why you would start with a number that is positive and you're converting a number that's positive into energy. I like to believe that I am also fairly competent on those numbers. I can't see how it moves from positive to negative. But perhaps if we can have a separate conversation, I would appreciate that. But in terms of variance is variance. Whether we are measuring something in terms of energy content, we are measuring it in terms of cubes. To me, Chair, no, I'm not covered. But I think perhaps I may be better explained if we have a private conversation. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Gumede. Colleagues, because there's still this point to be covered, I think as we go to the recommendations and noting, we are going to have to note, subject to the confirmation and the discussion that would ensue between Mr. Milato and Mr. Gumede. Thank you. Mr. Lzat?
Yeah, Chair, I think there's also one important aspect that Mr. Nxumalo has missed here that I think it's important to highlight, Chair. There's a new entry there. If you look at table 1 on number 3, there is gas delivered by PSA to SSA. So meaning that we received a new entry from Sasol, new gas source entry from the PSA project. And it is a gas that was apparently bought by Sasol South Africa from the PSA project. I think there was, this question will relate to what was asked by Mr. Gumede earlier on during the gas sources report about the source of gas, because we're told that there is a gas cliff. On this one, Chair, there are 2 projects in Mozambique. You've got the PPA project, Petroleum Production Agreement project. The current gas, these volume balances that we are talking about now, comes from the PPA project. So meaning the depletion of gas from the reserves are part of the PPA project, Chair. Then we've got the PSA project. So if you go to, on the same report on paragraph 6 point, I think it's down there, 6 point, next to, I'll check the paragraph, Chair. It talks about the approval of the financial investment decision for the PSA project. So this is the project that is meant to bring gas for the power generation in Mozambique. So the PSA gas development resources are not the same as the PPA project, the one that are bringing gas to South Africa currently. So now the gas that was mentioned there belongs to PSA. Now what happens is that Sasol has registered about 972,000 gigajoules of gas. It's a new gas source. It's part of this. And in that, Chair, they never informed the energy regulator about it, because if they are bringing new gas source, so it means it's new gas import coming to the country. So the import needs to be registered, and they need to go through all the necessary regulatory processes. But in that, Chair, they've explained that this gas came in before the completion of the gas to power project in Mozambique under the PSA project. Now they call it early gas that they've decided, the government of Mozambique decided to monetize currently before the gas to power project can resume. So now if you look at Mr. Nxumalo mentioned that there's an increase of the volume. So the increase is based on that PSA project, which they were supposed to inform the energy regulator that we've got a new source coming to the country and it needs to be registered. But now Sasol indicated that it was an oversight from their part, but they're going to inform the energy regulator and do all the necessary arrangements. But now the concern, Chair, from our side is that those additional gas sources are coming to Sasol internal customers, and they've not been made available to other customers of Sasol. And we hope that when they give the report, Chair, they will inform us about the volumes that are coming and how are they going to distribute it? Is it going to go to Sasol South Africa, or is going to be shared amongst other customers? So it also goes the same to the issue about Petro SA, that they've got the 2 million, and they aim to increase that. So the increase of any gas sources in South Africa currently is premised on the additional gas source that will be derived from the PSA project, Chair, that is meant for the gas to power project. So I thought I should highlight this, Chair, so that in future when we bring this report, you'll be saying you won't be saying where is it coming from, because it was never indicated in the previous meeting, Chair. I'll pause there for now, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mlatu, for your explanation, a detailed explanation. And as you say, it would have been nice if it was in the submission so that we can read it for ourselves and we can validate this and validate that. But when it comes to this matter that we are dealing with now, I am then tempted to say that we are going to note, subject to the verification of everything that needs to be verified before we take the report, because you have mentioned a number of things, and you are saying that they would come through in the next report. But in this one that we are noting, I want to take the members to item number 14 and saying we are going to note from 14.1E right up to 14.1K, with the proviso that there would be the verification that would be done and the explanation that Mr. Gumede was seeking in as far as the volumes are concerned and the conversion factors. Colleagues, are we comfortable approaching it in that way? And if we are, may you please raise your hand to indicate support? Good, Mr. Gumede, Advocate Sitole, Ms. Sibia, and Mr. Mkize. Thank you. Mr. Lamini, I hope you are able to record this in the way that we have agreed as the members, that we are approving those recommendations, but subject to the verifications and the discussions that would ensue between the team and Mr. Gumede. Mr. Lamini, please confirm that you are comfortable with how you are recording it.
I confirm, Mr. Pukula.
Thank you.
Noted how you've resolved it. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, we are now on to the next item. But before we go on to the next item, may I just thank the members of the public who have joined us, and thank you for your time. And I think your participation, which is merely listening, we are always happy when you do not transgress that right that you have of just listening to us and taking the notes. So thank you very much, and have a good morning still.